Ahora sí me despido con eso, pero quiero que se caiga Indio California. Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, Variety's music mavens unpack all that happened in the first weekend of the Coachella Music Festival way out there in the California desert town. Jem Oswald, Chris Willman, and Stephen J. Horowitz give us the highs and lows of Weekend 1, with headliners Sabrina Carpenter, Justin Bieber, Karol G, and many more. That was Karol G that you heard in the cold open from her electrifying Sunday night closing set. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Disney has confirmed it will implement layoffs of about 1,000 staffers. The cuts will hit hard in various marketing departments now that the Mouse House has created a unified command structure for marketing under Chief Marketing Officer Asad Ayaz. CinemaCon is in full swing in Las Vegas. Charles Rivkin, chairman of the Motion Picture Association, just gave his annual address this morning. He went right for the topic of the moment, AI. Rivkin told the crowd of exhibitors and studio executives that the industry should embrace generative AI technology as a tool that can, quote, improve the fan experience or enable artists to explore novel formats, end quote. Former Warner Music executives Julie Greenwald and Max Lusada have launched a label in partnership with Sony Music. The company is named 26.2, a nod to the distance traveled by runners in a full marathon. Meanwhile, former Universal Music Nashville chief Cindy Mabe has launched her own venture, Joan of Arc Music. Mabe tells my colleague Chris Willman, quote, country music is at a crossroads, end quote. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. Well,
2 years ago, I wanted to put out a little song before Coachella. And now I think you might know the fucking words. This is Espresso Coachella, we hope you like it!
And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. Jem Oswald, Variety's executive editor of music, Chris Willman, Variety's chief music critic, and senior music writer Stephen J. Horowitz break down the sounds and the sights of Coachella Weekend 1. There were a lot of surprises out there in the painted desert after the sun went down. That was a bit from Sabrina Carpenter's exuberant Friday night set that you just heard. Jem Oswald, Chris Willman, and Stephen Horowitz, all three of you fresh from a 72-hour marathon of incredible music and incredible sights and sounds coming out of Weekend 1 of Coachella. Especially Stephen, who actually did it IRL, drove way out there on the 10 and went out to Indio and experienced it in the flesh. Let's start with Stephen. Tell us about your weekend.
Well, I think you can sort of tell by the timbre of my voice that it was a little taxing. I mean, 3 days in the desert is going to have a pretty deleterious effect on the quality of your voice, so apologies. But it was a marathon for 3 days straight of all the biggest acts that are currently happening in pop music and a lot of legacy and veteran acts coming together in the desert. And it's very overwhelming. I mean, it's really a lot of people. You have to not be claustrophobic to go to Coachella. There's just people everywhere you try to go. But you sort of figure out how to navigate based on your interests and where the wind sort of blows you. You can come up with an itinerary of things that you want to see beforehand. And then when you show up, you realize that, you know, one artist that you want to see they're playing on a stage that's 2 miles from the next artist that you want to see. So you really have to sort of figure out where you want to cut corners and maybe swap in a different artist. And it's a lot of walking. It's a lot of refilling your water bottle at the free water stations. And it's really a test of endurance. But for anybody who's a music fan, I mean, this is the peak of concert experience. So it was great, to put it shortly.
This is the Olympics that you train for, you hydrate for. Okay, so Chris and Jem, you did Couchella, which is the also time-honored tradition now of watching it on the YouTube live stream from your couch. When you hear of Steven's experiences, contrast it to your own experience. Jem, let's start with you.
Well, actually, people are freaked out when they hear this. I have never been to Coachella. It's so far, it's so dusty, it's so much work, it's so much walking. I've been to other festivals, but ever since they started broadcasting it on YouTube, my whole attitude has been like, oh, because all I care about is the music. I don't need to make the scene. I don't need to hobnob with the executives because I see them all the rest of the year. All I care about is the music. And the live stream is the greatest place to hear what's happening. It is the best view you're going to get, 10 times better, even from like the greatest artist pass, VIP, whatever. And I don't have to go anywhere and it doesn't cost anything. So what could be better than that?
Chris, what about you?
I am a Coachella live and in-person veteran who made the switch to Couchella. And I can remember the last time I went, which was 2019. I remember literally running across the festival grounds to catch Blackpink, which was very unseemly for a person of my age. And, I was kind of a snob about it at that point. I was like, you have to be there. It's not the same. But then like the first year that it took place, mid or after the pandemic, I did do the home experience. And something that struck me was how beautifully everything is photographed, especially the main stage acts, where there's been so much rehearsal going into it, and you have these steady cams swooping around the stage, and it's like watching a concert film, except a real better than most concert films because it's not over edited. It's just all these beautiful kind of establishing medium shots that zoom in, and they're there on stage. So I've been a convert to the couch experience. And I love it.
I think a lot of what Chris said is correct. I think there's been a shift in recent years where artists are playing towards the cameras, and in person it's either like what Chris said, you're either up front, you've been waiting for hours. I have a colleague at another publication who waited 4 hours in the pit to be at Justin Bieber, and I was all the way in the back because I was covering the festival at large and had to be going around. I didn't have time to spend eking out a territory, but from my vantage point, I didn't get the same experience that someone like Jem or Chris had. Justin was very far away from me. The only way that I could really tell what was happening were the close-up shots on the screens on either side of the stage. And that doesn't really give you a sense of the totality of what you're witnessing. The stage looked amazing online, but in person, I really couldn't tell what was happening. Justin looked like a little ant.
I can only imagine, too, the coordination, because their artists are going to be particular about their look and their visuals and the sound of those visuals. I can only imagine the coordination between the concert promoters, YouTube, the people that are filming this.
Well, and it is very intensely rehearsed. And that's one of the things I marvel at the most is how, because you're talking about dozens, literally dozens of shows that have to be intricately filmed. Like the crews on each stage generally know what's coming. There are very few surprises and there are very few mistakes because I'm spending 8-10 hours on the live stream every single weekend. And there are very few like bad cues, or like wobbly cameras. And if there are, they fix it within seconds. The level of coordination is almost superhuman, and then it all vanishes within 24 hours, basically forever.
Let's go round robin, and just off the top of your head, what impressed you? What stands out in your mind? We'll start with Steven.
I think Sombr was very surprising to me. I've seen him live many times at this point, but we've sort of witnessed him sort of find his footing as a performer. As his star has risen, he has become a much sharper showman and entertainer. It felt like he finally hit his stride in a way that resonated in a tangential way. As Chris mentioned, Addison Rae, I think, was one of the top performers of the weekend to me. Absolutely pop mastery. She sort of has this quality where you want to root for her. She's having so much fun doing what she's doing, but she put so much hard work into it. She's just so root forable. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed Clips, a rap duo from Virginia. They're OG veterans at this point, but they just are masters at what they do. And then for all the headliners, I think the one for me that stood out the most was Karol G, a Colombian artist who closed last night at the festival. Just an absolute spectacle to behold. And she started 30 minutes late. People were very restless. I was in the front pit and I was squished in and I was like, I don't even know if I can stick around. I'm at the end of the 72-hour mark. But once she started, I was locked in. I couldn't take my eyes off her.
You bring up an interesting point that Coachella obviously is for the biggest of the big, but there is also that element of discovery, certainly a little lower on the bill. And then there's that sort of magical version of somebody who's well established, but may not be as well known with the Coachella demo. Sounds like Karol G had her big moment out there in the desert.
A very historic moment, especially because she's the first Latina headliner for the festival, and she just absolutely landed the plane. It was really masterwork.
She was absolutely stunning. Coachella has really leaned into Latin music in the last few years, which makes it a little strange that it's positioned as introductory for a lot of the audience. One of the few things she said in English, she said, I'm giving you a little touches of our culture. There were multiple genres of Latin music. There were multiple guest artists. I didn't see a single mistake in the entire show, and just the production, the references, the symbolism, the performances, everything was spectacular. And I thought it was actually better, although it's certainly not apples to apples, than any of the other headlining performances.
Just to tack on to that really quickly, I have to say I wasn't as enthusiastic about either of those. I think Sabrina had a lot of big ideas, but it was sort of within the same universe of the music that she's been putting out. It didn't feel entirely fresh and new to me in a way that Karol G did.
A person, again, not a surprise to me, I'm very familiar with, but I was happy to see her make such a good impression on the outdoor stage, kind of as the climactic act before the climactic act of Karol G on Sunday night.
Jem, what about you?
On Friday, the XX, the British three-piece group with the DJ Jamie XX, who's one of the best producer DJs working today. It was their first show in several years. They went on hiatus, came back just fantastic. Their music is very low key for a festival, but they very much pulled it off. Dijon, who is hardly unknown. He collaborated with Bieber on his album. He came out and joined Bieber for a song on Saturday night. But his set was really interesting because his latest album was intentionally lo-fi, and the songs really came alive when he was playing them with his 8-piece band, which at some points had 5 guitar players. Slater, who is mostly a pop singer in the sort of Charlie XCX mold, live, she's a rock star. And I mean, she even at one point did a death metal. Geese, who are like, the saviors of rock and roll these days. I saw them last fall, and their set at Coachella absolutely crushed that one. They've gotten so much better, and people focus on Cameron Winter's annoying to some people voice, but like they're not paying attention to what a great rock band they are underneath it all. Wet Leg, same thing. I saw them in small clubs. I've seen them on bigger stages, but they have turned into a stadium act. Rian Teasdale, their front person, is just a full-on rock star now, and we weren't seeing that before.
There's so much to take in at Coachella, and that's why we need a team of people. Now, is it round 2 for all of you this weekend? Stephen, are you going to go back into the desert, or will you also be Couchella this coming weekend for weekend 2?
I will be in my living room. It's very difficult to do that twice in a row. I respect anyone who has that endurance, but I am not that person.
Do you plan to watch as intently, or will you watch for different artists since you've seen the headliners already?
For me, it'll probably be 3-4 hours instead of 10 to 12, but I want to see things I missed.
I would say that there is a little bit of intrigue going into the second weekend, more than most years, just because there were elements of Sabrina Carpenter's set and Justin Bieber's set that would seem either spontaneous or unrepeatable. With Justin Bieber's set, everyone was talking about that 25-minute segment in the middle where he just scrolled through his old YouTube videos and sang along with them. And I don't think that's something, he certainly couldn't exactly repeat it in the second weekend.
I was just going to say one more thing. One of the big stories that came out of weekend 1 was Anima, who is an electronic musician who was sort of touted as the 4th bonus headliner. They've done this in the past. Last year was Travis Scott. He was scheduled to take the main stage after Sabrina Carpenter on the first night. And we were out in the field. Sabrina ended. I stuck around. I was like, I guess we'll catch some of Anima's set, even though it starts at midnight. I went and I watched Ethel Cain, who's a very provocative performer at a different stage, and came back, and around 12:15, I got a push notification that his set was canceled. That's a very big deal for a festival like this. They canceled it due to weather. He had I'm sure, massive production plans. He does not skimp on details. So that's not only devastating for him as an artist to lose that opportunity, but it triggers a lot of insurance things too, I'm sure. Like, it was probably a disaster on many fronts. But the smaller success story that came out of that is that he was able to do a surprise set last night at the Do Lab, which is the more free-flowing, electronic-leaning stage that's in the middle of Coachella. It has its own lineup, and he sort of got to redeem himself a little bit there. But next weekend, I think a lot more people are going to have eyes on his set because he's the only one who's essentially not repeating himself. So that's something to look forward to.
All right. Good word to the wise for people that are going to be glued to this for weekend two. Thanks to you three for covering all aspects inside and out of Coachella. Deeply appreciate all your expertise and all the hard work.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Okay. As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. Save the date. The Tribeca Film Festival will open its 25th annual edition on June 3rd with the premiere of the HBO documentary Earth, Wind, and Fire, To Be Celestial versus That's the Weight of the World. It's directed by Amir Questlove Thompson. It will open at the Beacon Theater and be followed by a set from the band, joined by Questlove's The Roots. That should be quite a set, even if it won't fall on the 21st night of September. Actor Stanley Tucci was born to host a foodie travelogue series. Thankfully, he's getting a second season of his Nat Geo TV series, Tucci in Italy. This time around, he's on an eating tour of Naples and Campania, Sicily, La Marche, and Sardinia. New episodes drop May 11th on Nat Geo TV and the following day on Hulu. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Juan Devis. He's been named president of Film Independent, based in Los Angeles. Devis was formerly chief creative officer at the Public Media Group of Southern California, better known as PBS SoCal to local viewers. The Colombian native is also the co-founder of production company 93 Media. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Jem Oswald, Chris Willman, and Stephen J. Horowitz. Sticks, nicks, hick, picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and please tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.